appreciation for each adventure and challenge along the way. I know this book will become beloved and will be read many times by those who find it. Thank you, Jennifer, for giving us hope and a sense of confidence to risk living our own lives with delight, freedom, and celebration. Sally Clarkson, author of Awaking Wonder, Help, I'm Drowning, and The Life-Giving Home. 1. Let literature free us from fear. There are no ifs in God's world, and no places that are safer than other places. The center of His will is our only safety. Betsy ten Boom, quoted in Corrie ten Boom, The Hiding Place. As we drove down the road, with the late afternoon sun streaming into our truck, I hung up the phone, kicked my feet against the dash, and cried, "I can't take this anymore," before bursting into tears. My 5 children were squeezed into the back seat, frozen in shock and wide-eyed at my outburst. The emotional meltdown had been precipitated by yet another hard no in my search for a place for our family to stay. Somewhere to escape from the crowded campgrounds we'd called home for the last few months. We were living small in a 30-foot travel trailer, and while I didn't mind the tiny home, I hated having neighbors so close. RVs with thin walls were lined up tightly like horses in rodeo chutes, and this life was starting to get old. It was winter in Southern California, and my overactive imagination was causing me anxiety as I worried about offending the elderly snowbirds looking for a quiet spot to camp for the winter, who might instead end up next to a loud family of 7. It was a beautiful place for nature study, with exotic moths flying among the fragrant eucalyptus trees. But I was desperate to find a less conspicuous place to park our home while we worked on building a mission base just across the border in Mexico. I was getting us through each day by quietly homeschooling in the trailer and following up with an hour of PBS Kids after lunch, until I felt we'd spent enough time on schoolwork to deflect awkward questions with proof of our scholarly diligence. Then, when I felt the coast was clear, I would let the kids out to play without worrying that I'd be reported for educational neglect by curious and close-minded neighbors. It wasn't easy keeping 3 little boys, as well as a daughter with sensory processing disorder, calm and quiet in these conditions. But with the help of my stalwart oldest daughter, we were managing. We worked hard to keep the tiny space tidy in order to help my younger daughter feel comfortable and to avoid conflicts. I didn't want our family to be noisy neighbors and attract unwanted attention, and I was desperate for a change, hopeful that a nearby Christian camp would let us rent a space so my kids could play freely outside, instead of being scrutinized by retirees who were critical of homeschooling. The stress of keeping my family cared for in the fishbowl of the campground was wearing on me, and I was careening toward a breaking point. It didn't help matters at all that my husband and I were quietly raging at each other, each blaming the other for the discomfort of the present circumstances. The missionary adventure had worn us out, and we could barely speak without erupting into a fight. A far cry from our formerly tranquil relationship. Many years after this trailer life experience, I watched a short clip of a parody on modern culture, Portlandia. In this short video, the characters romanticize van life and then endure its uncomfortable reality. The clip ends with the wife giving her husband the bird as she hitchhikes her way out of there. I giggled nervously at how closely it reflected our own experience. That is, I never gave my husband the middle finger, nor did I run off with a stranger. But I probably imagined doing both during the depths of this hard season. The tight quarters with 0 person.